Emily is an intelligent young woman. She got married but against the advice of her parents. Her decision created a lot of tension to the relationship with her parents. In fact, they were so mad that they broke off all contact with her. Everything could have gone so natural in Emily's life. In fact, we are all proposed to make a decision or even several decisions our parents disagree with. But the only thing that changed the direction of this story is imagination. What? How? Before finishing the story, let's put in consideration that we generally suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. So we will discover how Emily suffered with non-existent problems because of her own imagination. Now, let's see the story from two different aspects. Let's begin with a general aspect seen by our intelligent woman and maybe by the members of her family too. After breaking eye contact, many attempts at reconciliation failed because of the pride and obstinacy of both parties. Already as a result of her marriage, Emily, who belonged to a wealthy family, had fallen into rather impoverished circumstances, and now her relationship with her family is falling apart. Even when her child was born, her parents could not be moved to visit their daughter or to see the child. Well, this caused Emily more pain. One night, before she had fallen asleep, it happened that a door opened and the Virgin Mary stepped to her bed and said, "Because I love you so well, I must tell you that you will lie in the middle of the sun. I don't want you to be emperor." The young woman was not frightened by this apparition, but she awakened her husband and told him everything. On the next day, she went to the physician and told him about it. It was a hallucination. The young woman maintained that she had seen and heard everything quite clearly. Let's mention that she told her husband of her vision with an almost happy tone of voice. This prophecy quickly spread beyond the narrow circle of her family, and the physician had learned of it on the following day. And it was thus very simple to bring it about that her mother actually visited her. A few days later, the Virgin Mary appeared for the second time and spoke the same words. When the young woman was asked how her meeting with her own mother had turned out, she answered that her mother could not admit that she had done wrong. After that, a very satisfactory meeting between the young woman and her father obtained. A touching scene occurred, but the young woman was not yet satisfied, because she said there was something theatrical in her father's behavior. She complained that he had let her wait too long. Now it's time for us to investigate psychological aspects and give meaning to every event and behavior. It's psychology time. Neither the marriage against the will of her parents nor the obstinacy and pride of both parties is a real reason to fail reconciliation or to lose contact. In fact, Emily is very ambitious. This character trait is a good one, unless if you use it unconsciously to dominate everyone. Yes, you guessed it. Emily has the tendency to dominate everybody else. The occasion of Emily's marriage caused her father to treat her very badly, and the breach was the more remarkable, not only since she had grown as the favorite child of her father, but because her mood was completely dominated by her ambition. It is this character trait which gives us an insight into the reasons why the rupture affected her so deeply. The secret of psychology is understanding what we as humans have in common and what we don't. The first is called human nature, and the second belongs to the character of every individual or person. It's what differentiates us and what makes everyone unique. Now, let's crack the most mysterious thing in this case, which is that the young woman maintained that she had seen and heard everything quite clearly. At first glance, it seems impossible, yet when we apply the key of our knowledge, we can understand it quite well. Here's the situation. A young woman who is very ambitious and, as the examination shows, has the tendency to dominate everyone else. She breaks with her parents and finds herself in poverty. It is quite understandable that a human being, in an effort to conquer everything in the physical sphere in which he lives, should approach God and converse with Him. If the Virgin Mary had remained only an imaginary figure, as is the case in prayer, no one would have found anything particularly in this occurrence. But this young woman needed stronger arguments. The phenomenon loses all its mystery when we understand what tricks the soul is capable of producing. Is not every human being who dreams in a similar position? The difference really is this, that this young woman can't dream while she is awake. We must add too that her feeling of depression has placed her ambition under greater tension. Let's pause our investigation here and say something very important, which is hallucination is an artistic creation of the soul, constellated according to the goals and purposes of the particular individual in which it appears. Finishing our analysis, let's make sure to be accurate and mention the role of Emily's whole family. We already mentioned some. Let's us not to forget that Emily has a little brother who was considered the chip of the old block and the future inheritor of the family name. The fact that he was considered somewhat more valuable than our young woman served only to encourage her ambition and difficulties she was experiencing. Now caused her to think constantly and with ever increasing displeasure about the mistreatment she had received at the hands of her parents. About her mother, she was a stern, righteous person who had many good qualities, although she had treated her daughter with a heavy hand. She knew how to submit to her husband, without really relinquishing her own rank. Indeed, she drew attention to her submission with a certain pride and considered it an honor. Before making a conclusion about how can imagination or any of its forms, hallucination as an example, lead to self-sabotage, let's remind ourselves that the descriptions of hallucination in the writings of travelers are well known. The mirages which are seen by wanderers in the desert whom have lost their way and are suffering from hunger, thirst, and fatigue are excellent examples. We can understand that the tension which is arise when life is in danger compels the imagination of the sufferer to create a clean and refreshing situation for him, in order that he may escape from the unpleasant oppression of his environment. The mirage represents a new situation which can encourage the fatigued, refresh the feeling powers of the irresolute, make the travelers stronger or more sensitive. Or in the other hand, it may act as narcotic which can rob his misery of its horror. Now we can conclude that the phenomenon of hallucination appears in that moment when the psychic tension is at its greatest and in circumstances in which one fears that the attainment of one's goal is impossible. This phenomena is easily produced under circumstances of necessity or danger, and under the pressure of a situation in which one's power is threatened. One strives to obviate the feeling of weakness and overcome it. By this mechanism, let's go back to our intelligent young woman. We have almost finished putting the pieces of our puzzle to get her, except one missing piece, which is the apparition of the Mother of God. This apparition is an accusation against her own mother and her insufficient love for her child. Finally, the story I narrated is real. I just picked the name Emily for a patient of the psychologist Alfred Adler, who suffered a lot because of imagination. If you want to know more about yourself as a human, check his book, Understanding Human Nature. I'll put it in the description. Any subscribe and like is well appreciated. And since I'm new to YouTube, I want to hear from you guys if you have any notes. Hey, go easy on me.